This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink. I'm here with Ted Shilowitz for This Week in XR. It's Friday, December 6th, 2024.
Morning,
We've
Charlie.
been at this for a while, but we've been away for a whole lot of weeks.
The holidays and other events sort of took us away. You were traveling, I was traveling, Roni's traveling. I don't think Roni's even with us this week. He's off this week. So.
No, I don't know. I don't know how we missed 3 weeks in a row. That's never happened. We've never missed
first,
2 weeks
right? Yeah.
Never missed 2 weeks in a row. So the reason that we have three hosts is so that this will never happen. But here we are. So for those of you who are listening and wondering what was going on, really nothing, and that was the problem.
But a lot this week. Things are bubbling now.
Oh yeah, what's on your mind?
No, just the Cameron thing. I think is interesting.
That certainly was one of my top stories because Meta needs a hit.
The strangeness of where we are entering into 2025 and how the tech world is pivoting into it, right? Just sort of attempting to deal with the political spectrum in a way that people will accept.
I don't think it's about politics. I think it's just as simple as
just money, right?
It's Meta's got all the money.
Yeah, it's economic.
All that money that TV networks used to make, Meta's got that money now.
Sure, and has for a long time. Yeah. Meta.
But the one thing they don't have is a hit. The Quest, I'm interested in your perspective on this, but I'm beyond blaming the hardware for what's going on with XR at this moment.
Well, to say that Meta doesn't have a hit isn't really covering the whole story, because there are plenty of hits in the Meta world in terms of interactive entertainment, right? We've got our Gorilla Tags, we've got our Beat Sabers, we've got our walk around mini golfs, we've got many economic and social hits. I think Horizons has had moments where it started to churn up sort of a primordial Roblox kind of effect, but then kind of fell in on itself again, right? I mean, there's only so much content and so much material that people can absorb and link to, which is why you and I have talked about this forever, that all media is a hit factory. There are many more misses than hits, right? And Meta, within the realm of Oculus and the Quest, has its share of hits. I
agree with you 100%. Their problem is the other 350 million people in the United States who don't own a Meta headset.
Yeah, sure. Right.
So it's not a question of have they provided entertainment for the people on the headset. They have, of course. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using it.
Right.
So there's plenty of things to do if you like VR in the Meta Quest headset. What there isn't is something that someone who doesn't have a Meta Quest headset would buy one to do.
Specifically for, right. Well, and we see mainstream ads, right? I mean, they're marketing the Batman experience and getting people in it and
have you done the Batman experience?
People I have not. I've done other Batman experiences over my life, but I haven't loaded this one up yet.
People tell me it's one of the best things. It's like a Half-Life Alyx kind of execution on a very, very high level.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
That thing said, I get, the press passed all these things. Mm-hmm. And I try maybe 25% of them, but of course I jumped on that.
Yeah.
Just because of all the buzz around it, I couldn't do it. I can't do games where you navigate with your thumbstick.
Oh, it made you sick. It didn't.
I can't do it. And the older I've gotten, the worse it is. I used to kind of laugh at people and give them little tips. Well, just look up. Don't look at your feet. Blah blah blah. Even when they have the little tunnel that tries to minimize that feeling, I cannot do it.
Yeah. Well, going back in time in the arc of VR commercialization, Brendan was, one of the founders of Oculus, was very, very, very hypersensitive to.
Hey, yes, he could not do VR.
And there was a real push to a lot of experiences. Beat Saber would be one of them, that you are anchored in the world and the world is coming at you. You don't have to go out to explore.
Right. Well, there are lots of games that don't affect me. For
Mhm.
example, you mentioned Walkabout Mini Golf and
Yeah,
Beat Saber also. I do not get nauseous in those games because I'm
yeah,
not moving through space in that way. And in Walkabout Mini Golf, it's just room scale. So I
right,
have plenty of quote unquote room to move as long as it's in a
correct,
6 foot box. But the whole game is constructed to keep me in that box.
right,
So it feels like you're free and you have full agency.
yeah. I
Which
think,
many VR games. I mean, there are VR games that I love. To be fair to Batman and other games, there are some games that I love. I really, really like the World War II flying simulations.
mm,
I think they're terrific, but I got to tell you, I can only play for
yeah,
5 minutes, and I get that feeling where I like got to take the headset off.
yeah, you get a little sweaty and it doesn't feel.
Yes, exactly. You know
I
that
mean,
feeling.
going
And
back to one of my certainly very powerful kind of experiences that I talked about a lot, the very first Batman Arkham that showed up in the original PSVR was an incredible piece of work. It was really well thought out, well done. They were puzzling, they were solving things. It was way ahead of its time, and still deserves credit. But I think one of the things you're referring to across this sort of hit juncture is this transition, or this kind of arc or separation between what we refer to as sort of traditional narrative media and interactive gaming oriented media, which is still this kind of holy grail that's never really been solved. You're talking about the Game of
yeah, being
Thrones
in the
thing,
movie. I mean, that's the holy grail, right? You want to be in the movie.
right? And
But
there,
it's
yeah,
after you've made that glib statement, it gets a lot harder to figure
yeah.
out.
Well, and over the past couple of weeks, I was, using what's left of the interest in the Apple Vision Pro to look through some of their incredible spends, and really incredibly good production within the realm of three dimension, which kind of leads us into this Cameron discussion. The short movie, the submarine movie, is really exceptional. It puts you into that world,
Yes,
and
it's a very weird and very new thing. I agree with
yeah.
that.
They have an amazing thing around the Super Bowl. They got access last year to kind of cover some of the Super Bowl from the sidelines and inside and outside of the locker rooms with the Kansas City Chiefs. And it really is incredible, but it's still that moment of, and I talk about this a lot, virtual reality, mixed reality, whatever you want to call it, on a headset like that, on a box on face style headset, is still an exotic beast and will be an exotic beast regardless of the hit level of the content. People may gravitate to it for a moment, but then they gravitate away from it.
Yeah, I think that's true, and that also, by the way, was true of HBO, right?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones ended, and a lot of people dropped HBO because that's
Well,
the
this is
reason.
part of what media dynamics does.
But I do think that if James Cameron could make an avatar for the Quest headset, people would buy Quest headsets to do it,
Specifically, yeah.
and they would get exposed to other entertainment options on the Quest. So I'm hopeful. I mean, I think that's the right thing for them to do. Certainly, nobody can afford to make Jim Cameron's movies right now.
Mhm.
So, so this seems like and he's a lover of entertainment technology. He
Yeah.
was, trying to do things in movie theaters for his films and experimenting with different formats. So he's probably among the big filmmakers the most. Uh, Spielberg too, but he really, really has been leaning into technology for quite some time, and not just XR, but ocean research and all that other stuff. And I'm
Well, the other thing about
surprised he hasn't found himself on one of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk's spaceships.
rockets, yeah, I think at some point probably he will. The other thing that's really important about the Cameron effect, let's call it, is that he is a real protagonist of true stereo imagery, right?
Yes.
And these devices are stereo devices by nature, meaning you put them on and you're in stereo. Whether you get delivered a two-dimensional image or a three-dimensional image, the device by its nature is a stereoscopic device. It puts, and that's why you need an IPD and you have to measure your eyes and you have to land it to where it goes, right? So the three-dimensional effect is really strong and really natural, which of course makes sense that he would want to continue to evangelize that and find ways to use that. Plus, I'm sure there's an economic deal that makes sense for him to work with, a company like Facebook Meta that has huge coffers to spend on his
Yeah,
pursuits.
yeah,
Great.
exactly. I mean, if somebody's going to support his big vision, it's going to be Meta at this point.
Hmm.
We have a great guest today,
Mm.
Michael Murray, CEO of Kopin. Remember them?
Yeah, sure.
So Kopin is back. Kopin is Michael will fill us in, but they have narrowed their focus, and I think have been having a lot of success with that. I've been trying to get him in here forever. Sofia Dominguez from Snap will be with us next week,
That's
and
great.
after that, we have two of my favorite guests. We have Shelley Palmer for our year in review show,
Yeah, Shirley would be fun to do. Yeah.
and then we've got Gary Shapiro is going to do pre CES with us on January 3rd,
Yeah,
which
these are
is
good
just
shows.
an incredible get.
Yeah,
And
the next month of our lives as we enter into our little holiday, December into January, is going to be great. We're going to have really interesting guests.
are you looking forward to CES?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always, it's you and I both. We look forward and we sort of have trepidation around CES. There's
Yeah, I
always
mean, I
interesting
look
things that
forward
happen.
to. It's weird to look forward to something you know you're going to hate while you're doing
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just that many humans in one place is always difficult to navigate. But we manage. Somehow we've always
So
managed, Charlie.
I'm gonna try yet another new strategy to make Vegas tolerable, and I'm gonna stay in a downtown hotel rather than on the strip.
Yeah, that's smart. I think that's a good idea.
So
Oh, the one thing I should mention is that last week I did get a chance to do the Snap classes, their
yes,
augmented
what did you
classes.
think?
I think they exceeded my expectations in many ways. Um, the brightness of the displays. We actually went outside into the bright California day sunlight and walked through some experiences there and looked at some of the Niantic stuff. And
Hmm.
it is workable and usable outside. I think some of the choices they made to build a device that has a very large vertical field of view and not worry so much about the sides right now. They had to sort of tackle one or the other, and
Yeah,
they
yeah, they
tackled
changed the
vertical,
format to be more like a smartphone, and it isn't
which
bad. I thought I was
I didn't think it was
surprised
bad at all. I thought
at
it was very
how good
smart.
it was. It just goes to show you that we've been focused on field of view, I think, rather myopically. It turns
Yeah,
out if you're designing good content, people will move their heads and do what they need to do to consume the content. So it isn't
yeah,
that big of a deal, I
yeah,
don't think anymore.
yeah, yeah.
So you know what I got to play with here? I've even got them right here. It's the new Xreal.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
it is first of all super light. It's somehow they finally made these things sit comfortably
Hmm.
on my nose where I see the whole 140-inch virtual screen.
Yep.
But it's got one click anchoring for the spatial screen.
Yes. They
So
added a chip, a very specific chip, because
yes,
it was very Android focused because they could
yes.
do that on Android devices. But for us in the Apple ecosystem, it was always you had to add a little adapter piece or something that didn't
It,
it
it
made
was
it.
it was a Rube Goldberg mess.
Yes.
But in this now you just click the red button and you anchor your screen. You can move your head. You can do whatever you need to do, and it sits there like a regular screen would in the physical world.
Correct.
Which I mean, the other way didn't bother me that much, where the screen moved with your headset because I don't otherwise have the headset on.
Hmm.
Um, but there's no question this experience is way better. It's a huge leap for them. You just plug and play, right? No beam, no, as you
Yeah.
said, adapters. I just plugged it into I plugged it into everything
Hmm.
just to see, because I beat on them when I test them, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are some good video smart glasses out there. For those of you who are on audio, which is pretty much everybody, they've got kind of heavy waveguides inside them. I mean, like I said, the whole thing's less than 90 grams.
Well, it's bird bath optics. It's not
Yes,
waveguides. It's just
correct,
it's a reflector, but it works
correct. It's a
really really
reflector,
well.
but it works
Yes.
great. And
They're very
so,
bright. The new optics make the screen larger. The field of view is bigger, and they're great as a screen extension device.
yeah, exactly.
They work really really well.
It's assisted reality as opposed to augmented reality.
Yes.
I would say that also about the Ray-Bans, which are also really wonderful,
Hmm.
especially with the addition of Meta AI. And by the way, when that AI is connected to the internet and it can integrate some of the data from your phone, your gyroscope, your geolocation,
Yeah.
it is going to be a world changing event. So I know Xreal is. Uh, I talked to Chi last week, and he said they were working to integrate AI. They don't have really an articulated AI strategy yet, but the idea that you can talk and your glasses are filled with sensors that are feeding data into your AI is a thing, and it's going to be very important to agents. And the agent battle is heating up. In fact, I'm going to make a 2025 prediction right here. I
Okay.
think while CES will be about I think wearables will be back. AI will be everywhere. And the Christmas gift of the year is going to be the Ray-Bans. I think they're going to sell 10 or 20 million of them,
Mm.
minimum, because they're only $300 and you actually have something to do with them. And if Meta, well, there's character AI. There's this new company called Convergence AI.
Yeah, convergence, which is
Everybody's
a
got a
little controversial.
strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's got a strategy for how they're going to become your agent. Because once you get to be somebody's agent, you have your hand in their pocket, in their everything. So the value of that is must be thousands of dollars a year per person. I mean, it's like a credit card.
Well, we're seeing all the cues to what people were kind of keeping an eye on in the smartphone, the early smartphone era, right? Where these things, these convergence moments started to happen, these use case moments started to happen. Now we're starting to see what you and I have been talking about for literally generations now. The
4 years.
wearable step. What will it take to start to achieve that? The Ray-Ban stuff starts to show that. What you just showed with the Xreal starts to show that. Xreal will show up big at CES. They'll have a
They
big.
always do. I mean, they have such good taste. I want to give that to Chi and those guys. They have good taste. They have good marketing. I just don't think the product has really lived up a little bit to the hype. It reminds me of the old Apple, but he is a very. We can talk say nice things about Chi because Roni is not here. He is a
Mhm.
persistent guy. And he's got a vision and he's following it. He pivots when he has to pivot. He's not dogmatic about it at all. But the way they've evolved these glasses is truly impressive, and that their investors are hanging in with them.
Yeah.
They've built their own factory. They built their own chip. I mean, he's thinking big.
Hmm.
So I think Xreal is not going to go away. I think they're going to be a serious indie competitor to the sort of Meta, Samsung, Google thing that's going to emerge when we have uh,
Yeah. I mean, we're just
basically
watching the
Apple and
ecosystem.
Android versions of interactive wearable devices.
We're literally in front of our eyes, in front of our faces, watching the ecosystem evolve, right, and mature. And there will be certainly winners and losers in this, but now we're starting to identify who are the ones that have the resources to win, right?
One,
And
one, one thing I wanted to talk about, we got to get to Michael. He's in the
yeah, yeah, let's wait. Let's
waiting room. But one thing I did want to talk about is the slow rollout of Apple Intelligence.
Mm,
And some of the things they've done are good, and some of the things they've done are so half-assed. You wonder how they're ever going to catch up to these other companies. But it's Apple; it doesn't matter. They can fuck this up for months, weeks, years, and still, when they finally get it right, they're number one.
well, what's interesting is they have leaned into fully. Maybe you always wonder, does is anybody listening out there, right, to some of the stuff that you and I talk about? And I pontificate constantly on the fact that Apple learns from others and slow rolls everything. They do not
Yeah.
try and put things out first, and they worry more and are concerned more about how they deliver, not what they deliver, right? So when there's a Wired article I was just halfway through reading about Tim Cook, and he totally talks about, being first is never important to Apple, which is the truest statement that anybody's ever made, right? Apple is hardly ever first in any category, and Apple does stumble occasionally, but because they slow roll their stuff, they're able to work their customer dynamic in a way that is beneficial to them. And I think AI, because it's such a minefield and so challenging, I think their only choice was to just verbalize that we're just going to take a slow and methodical approach to this, and we're going to try and find the ways that it works best, and really try and be true to this protecting privacy, which is mostly true. At the same time, they do partner
Privacy,
with
your
OpenAI.
privacy is gone.
What's that?
Is that your privacy is gone.
Yeah, well, they are
I mean, and
obviously
then what? I mean,
partnering.
we're just going to make it worse because we want the benefits.
Yeah,
You know, why do you post photos for everybody to see? I mean, there are all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't, and very few that you should. But people decide the benefits of having it out there and making it public are greater than the benefits of having it be private. So that shows you how much people care about their privacy. So everybody cares about their privacy until somebody hacks their credit card or bank account.
right.
And so and it's hard because I see things that I do that are like, "Eee, should I do this?" But sometimes it's just expeditious to do it. I mean, the only thing that I'm super paranoid about is my social security number, but it's out there too. It's
For
just
sure.
out there, between your credit card monitoring service, it's just out there. I mean, you've got your credit card companies, you've already given them all that.
Yeah.
So they know all that. So Michael's been trying to get into the
Oh,
waiting.
there's some issue.
There we go.
Hello,
Hey,
John.
good to see you.
You as well. How you been?
Good. Welcome
Good.
to the show. I don't know if you've ever met my colleague Ted,
I
um,
have not. Nice to meet you, Ted.
Nice to meet you.
and our third wheel or fifth beetle, depending on how you want to put it. Rony Abovitz could not make it. He's on the East Coast, so this is in the middle of his workday at 11 a.m. For us, we've been doing this at 8 a.m. forever because it's really kind of before the workday starts here in California. But anyway, it's great to have you here. And Ted and I were just talking about Kopin. Obviously, it's been visible and part of the XR community for more than a decade.
Yes,
It was
sir.
founded by that great scientist John Fan, uh, who I was a fan of because he had very strong points of view about wearables and was very pragmatic about them at a time when people were spinning giant fantasies about what they may be someday.
Exactly right. Yeah, he's still in the game, and he's got his views and
Yeah,
direction. And the one thing I love about John is he definitely takes a position, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what true scientists do,
Yeah,
and they have a passion, and he's still at it.
yeah, and he's a true gentleman. So the pedigree of Copen is great in that respect.
Indeed.
But tell us how things are going now. You and I talked a year ago, so I have to apologize. The way this show runs is so funny because it basically the guests are people I run into in my reporting or people we're otherwise acquainted with who ask to be on the show. And so you end up booking way in advance because I don't want to be, if I meet you and I say you want to be on the show, then I give you a time 4 months from now. And if
Yeah.
something happens to that time, like we just bumped two people because of Thanksgiving and travel schedules and so forth, and to reschedule them is going to take 4 or 5 months. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm apologizing and booking you for May.
No worries. Well, you know what? It's a testament to the content that you create, right?
Well, it's also a testament to my incredible laziness, but we don't have staff on the show. So anyway, that's a long-winded apology to you because I wanted to have you on the show a year ago.
No
So
worries. No
first of
worries.
all, tell us. So we were talking about your strategy, and you were
Yep.
in many ways kind of pivoting the company, refocusing your customer focus, and you had big plans, and I love the sound of it. So maybe we can start there and
Well,
talk
Charlie,
about.
let me interrupt for a second
Please,
because we
please.
always forget. We always forget to do our 100,000 foot view
Oh yeah,
because our
what is
listeners are like,
Copen?
"What is Kopin? What do they do? Why do they do it?"
Yeah.
So,
All
5 minutes
right. Thank
back
you, Ted.
before you get
Thank
to
you.
your question, Charlie.
Yeah, no, a great question, Ted. So one of the things that I've learned that I was not doing well is articulating why Copen exists and why we do what we do. I talk a lot about what we do, how we do it, and the next things that we're going to do, but I never really talk about why we do what we do. And I think that's been remiss. So very succinctly, what Copen is all about, our mission, our goal, what I focus the company around, and our passion is really around improving human performance and insights to the human and their environment, and ultimately save lives. And when I started speaking about this in a recent conference, people kind of looked at me sideways and said, "Wait, don't you build the most lethal weapon sights for a tank program and a thermal weapon sight program and the most advanced warfighting machine in the F-35? Murray, what? You're not making any sense. Have you finally lost your mind?" And I said, "No. The point of what we do here at Copen is to allow folks to see their adversaries before they're seen in true darkness, in light during the day, to give them telemetry data and how to get home, where their buddies are, where their foes are. And ultimately also, now with our CR3 headset that just got picked up by Carl Zeiss, add that value of improved visualization in surgery applications, better outcomes for patients, and even our training and simulation goggles that we just released at ITSEC this week, training our people on real world scenarios so that when they do enter the field of war, they're just better suited to come home safe. That's really what we're about. Yes, we're a semiconductor company. Yes, we're a microdisplay and optics company. But in reality, that's our mission, is to improve human performance, insights into the gaming devices, spatial computing devices, as well as medical, industrial, and defense applications, but keeping that human performance and ultimately that insight into the human being and their surroundings, and ultimately, hopefully save lives. And I think that that's something that was remiss in our statements previously.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the level of sophistication of what your devices do and how you build them, for our listeners, these are not consumer level devices. These are industrial level, military grade applications.
They're not built to be light and
No, no, they're
portable and cheap.
super powerful, and they
They're
sit
built for the
inside very expensive
highest
machines.
demands of both industrial use as well as military and defense applications. And you really can't have any downtime, and you can't have any kind of our usual early tech jankiness. It has to be 100% uptime and 100% accuracy. So
Exactly. Well,
those
Charlie,
kinds of precision demands are very, very
exactly right. So in some of our thermal weapons sight or displays that go into the F-35 as an example, we deal with what's called a FOD, or foreign object debris. And that can be a fraction of a skin cell that gets in between the polarizer or the lenses that we use for magnification on our displays through the optics. If we have that foreign object detection or debris, it could be, again, a sub-micron pixel. That's not acceptable to our customers. So we have the highest performance, highest reliability applications that we work in. But moreover, we're now taking that to the next level, which is also, now we're adding AI, we're adding software components and sensors to our microdisplays with the neural display architecture, which we just announced. Our AI software development has now reached its new milestone of interoperability. That technology, we think, is having a tremendous opportunity for us, not only in the defense and medical market, but now the consumer companies are coming back to Kopin saying, look, we don't think we have this architecture right. 6 cameras in the Apple Vision Pro is too many. 6 cameras in the Oculus or IVAS Microsoft system is too many. It's too heavy, too hot, too much power consumption, too much cost. And then the co-processing that needs to go along with that. We think your neural display application that has the ability to do eye tracking inside the display has a lot of merit. And I think we're excited now to say that we're having those discussions with consumer companies and spatial computing device companies to solve that problem, which is size, weight, power consumption, and cost. So very interesting time for the company. And we're at an inflection point with this whole spatial computing market, as you said, Ted, correctly when I joined. Many of these companies are going back to the drawing board, which is good for Kopin.
Yeah.
Kopin, just to not to put too fine a point over it, but for most people listening, the new Kopin is not a brand they're likely to see on a device, right? Because Kopin is one of the main components inside the device. But outward facing, it's IVAS or it's Meta or another another hardware maker's brand.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So we're the in some cases we're the light engine for things like waveguides. In some cases we're a fully integrated optical module that includes the microdisplay, drive electronics, the housings, and lenses, but they get subsumed into other applications or boxes, if you will, or systems.
Right.
So we're a system integrator in defense. I think last we spoke, Charlie, some of the things that we talked about, like the big move that we made out of China when we did, I think was a relevant conversation that we had, and I think we're reaping the benefits of that now as the only U.S. owned developer and manufacturer of microdisplays.
Now,
And
you
now we
manufacture these in New England, is that right? Or
correct. So our liquid crystal is built here in Westboro, Massachusetts. Our OLED technology, we designed and built our backplanes at multiple different fabrication plants. But the deposition of that was done in China, if you recall. We still have that workflow that we can use for low cost applications. But for US DoD, we moved that deposition process outside of China, obviously for US DoD applications. So that was the first thing I did as CEO, is to make that move, and it was an unpopular one, right? Because people thought we were exiting the full focus on consumer, but I did that for the U.S. DoD with a little bit of foresight. And then we have our Vanguard technology, which is our micro LED strategy. We are probably the only company with a production monochrome micro LED that's flying in an aircraft today. And then our color program is back in focus. And then we also have our liquid crystal on silicon that we develop out of Dalgety Bay, Scotland. And that goes into our 3D AOI applications. And it's very cool for automotive too, by the way, because we have an automotive qualified liquid crystal and silicon microdisplay that is going to be automotive qualified through our, our armored vehicle program. So very unique company. And then we've invented the fifth type of microdisplay, which is this neural display architecture that has an imaging pixel that looks back at your eye and specifically looks for white, gray, and black. And that's how we do eye tracking within the display, and then do the computations that we need to do in the back plane, which is more complex than the Pentium processor at this point. So very unique technology, US owned, US based, very focused on defense right now because there's a big spend going on and big uplift. But medical is now in focus, and we just released some new industrial products as well.
I love
So
that.
these are
Medical is now in focus.
these are very, very sophisticated engineering practices that you
Indeed.
guys are involved in, and very hyper specialized. Where do you find the engineering talent to, like, who do you bring into your company? How do you cultivate this kind of engineering, optics engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, these kinds of groups?
It's a wealth of challenge, and what I mean by that is Dr. Fan was very focused on the best engineering talent in the world, and I carry that forward. Being here in Massachusetts, it's a blessing that we have tremendous university structures here.
Yeah, you have the MIT culture there, right, and everything that breeds from that. So yeah,
exactly. And that's how we helped develop our AI strategy. Is we worked with the MIT CSAIL group here. We still do. We have a great relationship with MIT. I'm a grad myself, but we have great schools like Northeastern that we've been hiring from, and one of the great schools is WPI, where we're getting really strong system engineers from. So we have that wealth of capability that we're bringing into the company. But we are pivoting the company, right? So some of that talent is turning over, but I'm very proud that we've been able to retain our best talent while attracting new talent from folks like Raytheon or General Dynamics or L3 that go through their perturbations, and I think those folks join us because we are a smaller company and their impact can be far greater here than they can at some of these larger multi-billion-dollar companies. So we're very fortunate that we've hired well, we've retained well, but this year, coming 2025, is going to be a big pivot for us on the engineering front, specifically in software and AI. So we'll be making that investment for our future because our future is very bright right now with all the technology developments that we have going on that we've recently announced, and we've got more coming. So big hiring push in 25.
Well,
I also think it's. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's interesting historically, of course, universities and the military have played a big role in advancing technology. And that has not been that visible for the past 30 or 40 years, nor is it seeming to be successful. But since the Ukraine war started,
Yes.
and the level of sophistication with, we only see, what's the saying? We are always fighting the last war.
Right.
Right. I
Right.
mean, my father was trained as a plastic surgeon for World War II. And, by 1943, they were like, we don't need plastic surgeons. We need more dentists.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, I think they've been kind of behind, but now they see, right? Nobody anticipated the importance of drones and how, drones kind of, in a way are tank killers.
Yes.
Just a complete surprise, I think, to everybody. And of course, it's used by both sides. So now you have issues about swarming, about jamming, about targeting, right? The stakes are so high and the people are so technically skilled. There was just an article, I think it was the New York Times, about them trying to put like double machine guns on these drones, which is just crazy. And
Yep.
they're operated by some first person operator in a trench somewhere,
Yep.
trying to navigate uh, toward a target. And so the amount of technology that goes into that is, almost what's more amazing is how quickly it gets deployed. And in times of peacetime, that is a very slow process, right? Because lives are not at stake.
Absolutely. There's three things I want to comment on here because I think it's very important for your listeners. One, I think the U.S. government has finally figured out that using off-the-shelf semiconductor components in defense is a real bad idea. As an example, if you leave something in the theater of war, as an example, like a Stinger missile launcher, which when you launch that missile, you drop the launch and you run because essentially you've created a line of direction from you to the adversary. So these folks are trained to drop the launchers and run. Well, if it's a custom chip, that's one thing. If it's an off-the-shelf chip that's inside of that launcher, well, our adversaries can open up that product and see all the semiconductors, pull the software off of it, and now you have a comparable device. That's how our adversaries got caught up so quickly. It was a policy change.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's one. Two, the CHIPS Act is there to work on that and bring that technology back in-house. Cool. That's great. Kopin will be a beneficiary, I believe, of those monies. But when you think about universities and the thing of the asymmetric warfare that's going on right now, with drones as an example, you need a first person type of goggle or AR VR device that you can still see the theater of war as you're manipulating your drone. And that's where our IVAS Now strategy comes in, Charlie. We just announced what we call our day HUD or night HUD with a company called Wilcox, who builds the IVAS helmet and probably 60% of the world's special forces helmets. You can now take ATAC software, which is the software that runs all of that infrastructure, off of your chest from a computer standpoint, and that puts it right in front of your eye in a fully transparent, see-through application. So you can see where your drone is going while still looking ahead of you for adversaries that might, be looking for you. So great technology. That's where this IVAS Now strategy came from. We're very proud of it, and it's now being tested.
And Duril has just come in as sort of a white knight to help Microsoft somehow save that contract. Do you think they will?
I think so. I think Anduril has tremendous capability in their security software and their edge point software. It is fantastic, and I think Microsoft knows it and needs it. Now, that structure in IVAS, I talk about this often. It's actually far less about the goggle than the back-end software and security that goes along with it. That is a tremendous amount of cost and complexity that Microsoft and Anduril will have to focus on and adapt. Where we're focused, obviously, is in the microdisplay that goes into the goggle, right? And I think we have tremendous merit to support our troops with the neural display or the micro LED technology that we're developing for soldier vision systems. Micro LED, as a reminder, it's the vanguard of technology. That's what Apple wants, Google wants it, Meta wants it. They spent billions of dollars to develop it. We happen to already have one in production. A lot of people don't realize that. But that architecture from micro LED to neural display, it's the same backplane. All we're doing is changing one of the pixels to be an imager. So we think we have a tremendous merit to solve some of the problems in that area, and we're engaged with all of those companies to vie for that business. I've been very vocal about that because, again, I feel like if we were able to support that, we would save lives with our technology. That's where I think the industry will go. But the third thing, real quick, before I get off this discussion, when we think about drone technology in the future, again, it's got to be directed in a very finite precision way. And that asymmetric warfare that's going on right now requires drones to be much more accurate than they will be, as well as the projectiles that you want to shoot down the drones with. So from a thermal weapon sight
Right.
perspective, Kopin's very well positioned. From a goggle perspective or an ATAC perspective with our monocular, we're also very well positioned to control those drones.
Right.
So there's a defense and an offense strategy.
Yes, I did not we were originally talking about IVAS and conceiving what its capabilities were. It did not occur to me or any of the experts that I was conferring with that it would become also an interface with for drone operation. But it starts to make a lot more sense when
Yep,
you view drones as sort of a portable artillery that can move with infantry.
exactly right. And it's
And
interesting.
that's a completely different way about thinking about that headset. So it has to be mixed reality. It has to toggle between fully occluded drone operation and partially occluded operation, as well as just turn off the VR and see reality augmented, if you will. Um,
Exactly right. So
of course,
interesting.
the problem has always been twofold. One is the thing that makes night vision goggles work is the ergonomics, right? It's
Mhm.
I've got them on, I'm using them, I flip them up, and they're like any other tool. I'm not using it now, I will discard it. And I think that going with a spatial display as opposed to monocular displays locked them into that fixed helmet.
Exactly.
It is probably better for drone operation because you can fully occlude it when needed. But it does not give the soldiers and the operators the flexibility they need to discard it when it isn't helping them.
Correct.
And that's why, they've had such spectacular success in demonstrations and such unbelievable failure in the field, getting reports from officers that say things like, if we use this in combat, they'd get everybody killed.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if those things can be solved. But I've always thought the micro display was the better way to go. It's proven, it's ruggedized, it doesn't, consume the same amount of power. I mean, there's just a whole lot of reasons to sort of make it, you don't need a spatial display to call in an airstrike.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think one of the interesting things that we learned, and you would probably take a decision on this or a position, it's actually daytime that's a big problem. As an example, if you're looking through a weapon sight or our IVAS program now, which we call the monocular that we brought to market with Wilcox, daytime, green on green, meaning green field in the background, full light of day, to see that symbology is really difficult, actually. Green on green during the day, being able to be bright enough that you can show symbology against a daytime scene without transmitting so much light into the warfield or battlefield is a real problem for this
Is
technology.
that something that AI can help with?
Absolutely, 100%. And not only can it help with that, but it also helps with how quickly you can display images so that the human mind doesn't get tripped up that it's seeing something that's augmented. And you have about 500 microseconds. Dr. Hopper of Night Vision Labs wrote a really nice paper. I hope your readers will read it. It's available online on AFRL, I believe. That paper is brilliant. It basically goes through how the human mind looks at certain images and how quickly your mind will actually interpret that information and understand whether it's feeling nauseous, fight or flight, all these different things. And you only have 500 microseconds to be able to adapt that. And that's where we put in that spec for neural display. It adapts the brightness and contrast within 500 microseconds. So your physical eye has the time to adapt to that vision. And that's a huge thing for things like nauseousness, fight or flight, this comfort level that needs to be in front of a human being's eye. So that's a real important part of our development.
Can we, with the time we have left, can we pivot out of the military industrial complex
Yeah,
for a moment and talk about your work in medical?
yeah,
Because I think that's just as important, hopefully in many ways more important. And it'd be interesting to hear what you're doing to advance that, because there's been a lot of attempts and tries and mostly fails or semi fails at using augmented mixed reality technology across the sector in medical. But I think you're making some inroads there too. It'd be interesting to hear.
no, great question, Ted. And this is a story about ergonomic design, right? I can talk about the OLED, blah, blah, blah. It's great. Awesome. But when you look at our CR3 headset, the way that it's designed to sit on the bridge of the nose of a surgeon so that as they look down at the patient, which you would want them to be looking at, right? They can actually just with their eyes glance up and see a 3D
Yep.
rendering of the cameras and assisted surgery technology. We don't do that, but partners like Carl Zeiss, Olympus, et cetera, they do all that work. But the ability for the surgeon to look at you, the person, the patient, while they just glance up and see that 3D rendering is going to save lives. And that ergonomic design with the balance between the intelligence at the back of the head, where the wire and cable go down to receive that information, was critical. And we worked with actual surgeons to develop that technology through our partner HMDmd, which are a bunch of surgeons, right? So we learned what the surgeon needs in that application specific optical solution. And the ergonomical design was built for that application. So it's balanced, the visuals are there, the richness of color, brightness, and contrast. And it's a 3D image, so there's depth perception that the surgeon can see and feel. That has been a tremendous growth opportunity for us. And now you can actually see this on the Carl Zeiss website. They actually have it up there, I'm told, on their own website. So that's our first iteration. It is now in production, and we do have it in the hands of surgeons today and getting great feedback, absolutely exceptional feedback from instead of looking up at a monitor all the
Right.
time. These folks are able to focus on the patient, which is what you want.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is
Yeah.
the typical methodology is now in a surgical operating theater, there are many monitors with many cameras grabbing super hyper close up imagery, mostly all
Exactly.
two-dimensional, and their distraction point, that time just to look, focus, get back down to the patient. If you can increase that sort of time fidelity where they don't have to move their eyes to the other field of view and then lock back down, I think they see efficacy in that and value in that, and you start to prove
Absolutely.
it. So it's interesting that you're in that field. I think it's
Yeah,
great.
so I use the example all the time. If you drive, which I do, and you check your blind spot, if you watch my hands, all I'm doing is just moving my head to the right or to the left.
Hmm.
But your hands follow your head, right? And if you have to consistently move your head up to look at a display, your hands will generally move. And that is a huge issue if you're doing things like a brain surgery, heart
Yeah,
transplant or what have you.
yeah,
So we're trying to minimize that and going back to our mission as Kopin to save lives and improve human performance. Also, now with neural display, we're able to count how many times the surgeon blinks, how quickly their eyes start to squint. Therefore, in a 10-hour surgery, when do you tell a surgeon you're too tired? You
hmm,
need to take a break because your eyes are strained and they're not operating in the fashion that they need to be for optimal performance. Through neural display, we're able to do that without adding any size, weight, or power consumption like cameras on the front end of the nose, which is where you don't want it.
right.
So that's part of the thought process, but it's all about human design. And I think going back to your comment, Ted, was exactly right. Apple will get it right. They will get it right, but they're also not in a hurry either. Being second, but being better is a great way of doing that. They'll have the infrastructure, but they need to get the ergonomics right. And if I had to bet on any company getting the ergonomics right, it would be them.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
So
we were
by
just talking
today's
before you came on earlier in the show. Apple is one of those few companies that has an unlimited number of at bats. So they
yeah,
can thrash away with Siri all they want, but when they get it right, they're going to be the largest and most successful player because of their installed base and yeah, because of that.
exactly.
well,
Absolutely.
it's also nice to have an ecosystem where people won't leave when they don't get it right away. They
Yeah,
just
that's true.
you know, when you've got a 3.6, 3 point, close to $3.7 trillion valuation and a massive ecosystem of, I guess, people, we could call them fanboys, fangirls, fan people if we want, but they're people that are tied to that ecosystem and will have the same patience as Apple has because they're not going to move to another operating system, right? They're not going to
Right.
move out of that
That's their
world.
strategic control. Their strategic control is their platform that adds applications to the headset, meaning Netflix, Disney, gaming applications, that 3D environment that they've built. Those applications are their strategic control. That's what's going to bring you to the Vision Pro and wear it. But they've got to make it lighter, cheaper, better in many ways. And they will. I have full confidence that that will happen. But they're going back to the original cell phone model, which was, you remember when the first iPhone came out, it was clunky, it didn't work all that well, but it had the app store. And that's what they really focused in on and built that application space. That's what's going on right now. And then the hardware got better, and then the hardware got better, and then the hardware got better, right? But the application space also improved. And that's what I'm encouraged by. I'm not worried that, these folks are going back out and redesigning hardware. In fact, that's good for me. It's good for Kopin, quite frankly, but it's also good for the industry that they're now looking at that integration of semiconductors, taking sensors, putting them in the display, putting power consumption and audio codecs together, just like a cell phone does, and integrating that way. That's how they're going to be successful, and they're better at it than anybody in the world.
Well, that sounds like a pretty great place for us to wrap up. Michael, it was great having you on the show. Thanks for
Always
making
good.
Thanks for making time for us this morning. Ted, great to see you again.
You too.
Apologies to those of you who were looking for us in November and couldn't find us because we weren't there. We work really hard to make that not happen. And then, of course, we had the double whammy of Thanksgiving following those two difficult weeks when we all were double scheduled. So we'll see you all back here next Friday. We'll get back to our consistent ways. It's been 4 years. We're not going anywhere. Michael, I hope we have you back. Michael Murray of Kopin, one of the veterans of the XR industry and a really interesting technology company involved in displays and other technology. So thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks, Michael. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Seth.